Hello and welcome to a new speedrun world record of The Last Guardian any percent. I started running this game 1 year ago, and just to put this into perspective, back then the world record was a 3:12:50 by Sable Dragon Rook, and to this day that is still the second place on the leaderboard. Since then I was able to improve the record many times. My last personal best was a 3:01 in March 2022. And now I was finally able to push the record all the way down to a 2:59:12, which is the first sub-3 run ever. So to me it is a very special run, and I thought I'd do some commentary and provide a little bit of an insight about what I'm doing on all the skips and the mechanics in the game. And perhaps if you want to try the speedrun yourself, this can also be of help to you. In this first section of the game you need to collect all the barrels in this area and feed them to Trico. And the fastest way to do this is to get the 2 barrels on the left first. So I'm pulling the lever, and while the gate opens I'm getting the barrel at the top. And then I'm letting go of the barrel mid-air to make the boy drop down just a little bit faster. What's important here is to always keep the camera on Trico. If you're looking away, he won't eat the barrel, or at least not as quickly. So now Trico has already finished the first barrel, and as I'm arriving with the second one, I can already feed him again without having to wait. At the end you want to try to get a fast spear pull. The timing is very important. I'm waiting until Trico has crunched down on the barrel once, like that. And then I'm gonna pull the lever. And if you did it right, you should be able to pull out the spear immediately after. You might notice that the background of the controller at the bottom left is not always completely in sync with the full picture. That's because I'm using the local PlayStation recording for the full screen, and the bottom left is from my capture card in OBS, so it's basically 2 videos overlaid on top of each other. Also, the capture card is really bad, so occasionally there can be some screen tearing happening in the bottom left. Coming up is one of the biggest skips in the beginning of the game, the mirror latch skip. So usually what you would do is to call Trico and wait for him to come over, but by stepping onto this stone, which is a little bit elevated, you can get a boost, which is just enough to be able to grab the ledge above. It's quite a difficult skip, but it saves around 30 seconds. Now I'm doing a checkpoint reset as soon as I'm getting out of the smoke. That will teleport me a little bit further ahead so that I can skip most of the crawling in this tunnel. And checkpoint resets are a very common strategy to save some time, and I will be doing a lot of them throughout the run. There's no indication in the game if you have triggered a checkpoint or not, so it does require a lot of memorization, and there are also different conditionals for each checkpoint. So for example, the checkpoint just now was based on my location in the tunnel, and soon I can show you another example for a different conditional. Over here there's another checkpoint, but this one is action-based. As soon as Trico has finished his lightning animation, you can do a reset and you will spawn in the first room again, and you can immediately start shooting the rubble that is blocking the way forward.
Atatui ono bumaka o nirakia beta ramiezi o trikuno ye tarastezi ono dak ahinoro kuinuzi.
There's another checkpoint reset here as soon as you reach this mossy stone. So instead of having to wait for Trico to come all the way over here, you just do the reset and he will be right next to you. This next part is kinda tricky. I've never found a consistent method to get this done quickly. Sometimes Trico shoots it down immediately. Sometimes, like now, he likes to take his time. Seems like RNG. What you can potentially do is to point the mirror a little bit higher to one of the top segments and then draw it down. But very often the lightning will just break and you'll lose even more time than if you do it the safe way like I just did. Looking up to Trico makes him jump down just a little bit faster, I believe. And there's another reset over here. As soon as Trico has jumped down into the water and has started to move, you can also try to jump up the rocks here and attempt the lake skip. And if you get it, you don't have to do the reset, but it's a very difficult skip and I basically never get it. What I'm doing now is what I call a circle grab or a fast grab. If you stand close to a ledge, you can press circle and the boy will pull up on his own. It's a little bit of a hidden mechanic. Usually you would just jump in the direction of the ledge, but sometimes the boy will miss the grab or he just grabs it with one hand and swings around for a bit until he pulls up. And with this circle grab it's instant, very smooth, both hands on the ledge. Just a minor optimization here, but it's also useful in other situations. And now I'm out of the caves at around 850, very solid, and just a little bit of time lost at the start of the lake section. And here we get a first glimpse at the White Tower, which is the destination of our journey with Trico. The Windmill is a small Easter egg from Eco. You can destroy it with the mirror and the lightning.
Aratizi, Otetara Lastuzi, Arakastakaru, Inokia, Ataduro Kutuzi, Yano Mot Katunek, Aokuzi.
I'm using X to crouch down and run alongside this ledge, always waiting for the animation cycle to end before pressing X again. And you want to be very careful with the first jump onto the chains. I'm using the circle grab again, just to be a bit more safe. And now the timing is very important. You want to call Trico right about here. And you'll see why that matters in a bit. And now I'm going to run all the way around to the entrance at the top that I just opened. And calling Trico in that specific spot earlier pretty much guarantees that he will always be on time and in the right place to jump up there. And there he is. This is as good as you can get it. What you really want to avoid is him going too far, because then he has to turn around and walk back, and that takes quite a while. So very important to have him in the right spot there. Ideally you want to jump across this gap, but the wall has some kind of magnetic properties and sometimes it just pulls you in like this. And what's following now is just the normal route with a few resets. Here we encounter an eye made from glass, and Trico won't move onwards until you've gotten rid of it. And as you can see here, Trico steps forward, and if you push the eye off the edge fast enough, he will still be in that forward movement and follow you very closely. Maybe the way how I move the boy and how I position the camera also contributes to getting a faster Trico. It's very hard to tell if any of these factors have a real impact on his AI, but this specific setup has proven to be the best over time for me. I very often get a fast Trico, and he almost never gets distracted by the antenna room, so it's very consistent for me. This is one of the sections where you need to be precise with your controls, hit the right jumps and avoid grabbing the wrong ledges. And as soon as I have pulled the lever, I can do another checkpoint reset. It's quite a few checkpoint resets at the beginning of the game, there aren't that many later on. And now I'm entering the first antenna room at about 18 minutes, that's a very good time. And you basically want to stand right here and you'll be in the perfect spot so that in the following bit, Trico can immediately catch you without having to move. There's a small load screen here and one of the few cutscenes that you can actually skip. If you play on a PlayStation with an SSD, you will have a much faster loading screen here. You'll save about 5 seconds. And while that doesn't seem too much, there are so many load screens and checkpoints resets in this game that it does add up over the course of the run. I'd estimate you save around 1 minute in total if you play with an SSD. And if you really want to push the run to its limits and go for a sub 3, 1 minute is so much time. I don't have an SSD, I'm just playing on a regular PS4 Pro, so actually on a PS5 for example, this run could have been even faster, like a low 258.
Very cool.
Here I'm stepping onto Trico's leg to get into an elevated position, which allows me to jump over the railing and directly onto his tail.
Oisonichi, I Oroi, O Nozi, Awisi.
Coming up now is the first fight of the game. There are 4 guards in total that Trico has to kill. The fights always have some degree of RNG, since you're mostly reliant on Trico, and you can basically just watch from the sideline and hope that it goes well. But luckily this fight is usually very consistent. What Trico is really focused on in this fight and afterwards are the helmets of the guards. So what you want to do here, after Trico has killed some of them, is to pick up a helmet and carry it to the end of this room to get Trico to follow you. And the problem is that you sometimes get multiple helmets that remain on the bridge, and Trico might not necessarily focus on the one that you are carrying. But I got quite lucky here. Trico killed all the guards very quickly and he is immediately following me. Very good fight. And now I'm going to climb up his hind leg and onto his back. It's a little bit more stable and also easier to move the camera than if you climb him from the front. And now I'm gonna climb up the chain, and when I reach the end there's another checkpoint reset. It's a bit hard to see the analog stick, but I'm pressing up, then release, up, release, in a certain rhythm, and that allows me to cancel out a part of the animation and climb up a little bit faster. Here I'm already calling Trico before I reach the edge, and the idea is to prevent him from going too far forward and have him turn around a little bit earlier, which didn't really work this time. He's pretty far forward. But at least he turns around immediately here. Sometimes that can take a while. This is a scripted event where Trico will circle the area and scream at the White Tower in the end. There's nothing you can really do to skip that. Now I'm positioning myself on Trico's neck to be able to drop down as soon as he has jumped up onto the pillar, and I can reset as soon as the boy hits the ground. Now I need to move the Aroma pod to the middle opening. There's a small mark on the right side of the track which kinda indicates how far you need to pull. And then I'm trying to get onto Trico's head as fast as I can, so I can immediately grab the ivy before Trico sticks his head into the hole. And that's the difficult part, because climbing Trico can be quite messy, especially if he moves around. But now I just need to close the pod, wait for Trico to pull his head out again, and then I can reset. You need to close the lid of the pod because the Aroma is distracting Trico and preventing him from moving on. And here I just recently discovered a new skip. Normally you're supposed to run to the end of this ledge, then Trico will jump up and then you can run back and climb up his tail. But if you're quick enough, you can turn around immediately and just barely reach Trico in time to catch him. So now I'm already on his upper body and I don't have to climb up all the way his tail anymore. Saves about 10 to 15 seconds. It's a very precise skip. You need to be right on time and you also need a little bit of luck. And also do not call Trico if you want to try this skip. There's another reset over here. Again, you wait for the boy to drop down to the ground, but you need to make sure that you land far enough forward, otherwise the reset doesn't work and you respawn back at the ledge before. So it's definitely one of the more tricky resets in the run, but it does save a few seconds. And in this area there's another scripted event where Trico takes a bath and we encounter the enemy Trico for the first time. It's not quite clear what the condition for this checkpoint reset is, but I just run into this room as soon as the enemy Trico has disappeared, and that usually works out fine. This skip is quite similar to the one I just did on the ledge. While Trico is jumping up, you catch him in the air and let him carry you up. So far the run has not been too difficult. There's a few skips that you need to hit to get a good time. The mirror ledge at the beginning, getting a good fight at the antenna room and getting a clean Aroma pod section, that's important. But overall there's very little chance of dying or something going completely wrong so far. So I pretty consistently get to this point at around 30 minutes. Now, however, there's one of the most difficult sections in the game coming up, and especially in the corridor fight and at command skip, you can lose a ton of time. This first fight isn't too bad. I'm just trying to get up onto Trico here as fast as I can. And then I'm looking for a window of opportunity to jump off from his back onto one of the pillars here. Ideally, you can even make the jump before he starts jumping around. For some reason my PlayStation recordings sometimes skip a few seconds and I forgot to enable the audio on my capture card. That's why the audio cuts out for a bit here. And you want to jump a little to the left here because the water is deeper in the middle and it will take you longer to start running again if you land in it. Whenever I'm approaching a ladder, I'm pressing circle before I reach it, just to make sure that the boy grabs it properly and immediately starts climbing. It also helps to jump at the beginning, just to get out of reach of the guards. Now we're entering the dreaded corridor section. Trico will spawn right here with his tail trapped inside the gate after the next checkpoint reset, and we have to free him, and he has to kill all the guards in this section to be able to continue. There's one guard in this room, and I will do a little right turn and try to lure him towards Trico. And by doing that little detour, the guard will pick up a spear, and instead of following me, he will fight Trico. As you can see here, there's only the 4 guards that spawn in the corridor following me, so that's perfect, and one guy stayed behind. And that's very important, because if all the guards follow you, there's nothing for Trico to focus on as soon as you have freedom, and then sometimes he just gets kind of stuck in the gate and doesn't move. So by luring that one guard in front of him, he's getting aggressive, ready to fight, and there's already one guy very close for him to kill. Now I'm just praying for Trico to kill everything before he triggers the scripted run down the corridor. That's really the most frustrating part about this, because it's very common for Trico to leave like 1 or 2 guards behind, enter the corridor, and since it's so narrow he can't turn around, so he has to do the full run down the corridor, and then turn around and go all the way back. And that's why you can lose so much time here. Now luckily he has actually killed all the 5 guards, but he hasn't triggered the scripted run yet. So I'm going back to get him. There's one last guy at the end here that Trico has to kill, and then I can do a reset. The conditions for this reset are all the guards are dead. A guard counts as dead as soon as it has exploded and you can see the blue smoke. And we have to stand outside the corridor over here. Also you can hear when a fight is over, because the music will die down as soon as all the guards are dead. So if you want to be extra sure, just wait for the music to stop before doing the reset, because the fights can get pretty messy and it's not always easy to tell if all the enemies are actually dead. I'm doing the reset immediately to save a bit of time, but had I missed a guard I would have had to do the whole fight all over again. Now we're in the section where you learn to give Trico commands. In a speedrun you just skip that, therefore it's called command skip. I'm stopping Trico right here and I'm trying to get him to lift up his head. He'll either do that on his own or when I pet him. This is the specific animation that I'm looking for, and it's just enough to be able to make this jump. There's a lot that can go wrong here as well. Sometimes Trico just won't lift his head, and sometimes if you pet him, he just lies down and goes to sleep, or he gets distracted by the barrels nearby. You can lose even more time here than in the corridor. But all in all, this section went really well, and after the gate has fully opened, I'm doing another reset. Now we got commands, and if you want to tell Trico to go somewhere, there are basically 2 commands for that. The directional command that I just used, where I'm pointing the analog stick in the direction where I want Trico to go. And there's also the jump command, where you need to turn the boy to face the destination, and you press triangle and R1. Basically, the directional command is a little bit more precise. The jump command is a bit quicker, since it's instant. So it's not like one is necessarily much better than the other. Both are useful in different situations, and over time you'll figure out what command works best for each specific spot. This is the first turtle guard fight. Here you need to maneuver around the guards without stepping into their lights. The guards will pretty much always be rotated in the same position like this. But sometimes the guard on the right will be turned a little bit further, and then you need to go through the middle instead of the right. But even then you'll still be in time to open the gate before the guards can catch you. What I'm trying to do here is to group the guards together in such a way that Trico can kill them both in one swipe, and then I can instantly reset. This is the second turtle guard fight coming up, and we used to do this the same way as in the first fight, where you would jump down to the ground at the beginning and reset. But instead I found that you can jump over here to the beam and then across to this platform. And now you're just barely low enough to be able to make this jump down without breaking a leg. And you have a perfect timing to pass by the guards without them noticing you. There's not much you can do in this fight. You can try to bump into the guards, that will cause them to focus on you, and then you can try to group them up a little bit like in the first fight, but that's pretty much about it. This section you just need to give Trico the initial command, and then he will take the rest of the jumps on his own. Here you want Trico to jump over to the right window. And now I'm positioning myself on Trico's right side in the middle of his body. That's because you don't want to be on his back when he passes under this gate, because then you can get swept off. By positioning myself like this, I'm also already facing the direction I want Trico to go next, and I can immediately give him the command. Here's another new skip, which I will call the Conqueror's Leap. You cannot jump straight down to the ground because here you'll just die on impact. But instead you can jump over here, slide down alongside this wall, and usually the boy will grab the vines at the very bottom. Unfortunately, the game somehow detected some collision and it didn't work this time. Unfortunate. It's a very cool skip, but there's a checkpoint reset anyway, so not a big time loss. And that's also a good tip: if you break your leg, it's sometimes faster to just hit the reset instead of waiting for the boy to recover. Here you can reset as soon as the boy and the pot have touched the ground. And now we're in the Aroma gate section. There's a little bit of RNG involved, how quickly Trico will open this gate, but it's not too important. Now I'm using another command which is very rarely utilized, and that's the stop command. So by pressing X and R1 you can scold Trico and break him out of the animation that he is currently doing. And right now I want to stop him from bumping his head into the gate and instead make him move over to the Aroma pot to pull on the chain and open the gate. The stop command is also useful when you messed up a command and Trico is about to jump somewhere where you don't actually want him to go. Then you can basically reset him and give him a new command. Trico is really interested in this axle on the left and he will completely ignore you, but you can refocus him on you by calling him right as he starts to sniff the metal. And as he slips onto the gate, you want to jump onto his head and he will walk right up to this section where another 2 eyes are blocking the way. I'm picking up a helmet here and waiting a little bit for Trico to jump up, because there's a small shockwave as he lands, which will knock the helmet out of your hands if you're too close. During this cutscene, I'm already able to destroy the first eye and save a little bit of time. I never really understood this, but after destroying the eyes, Trico very closely inspects the broken glass, and sometimes he basically just softlocks here. I tried command, calling him, not calling him, everything. There's basically nothing you can do about it, I guess. Luckily he has his head in a position so that I'm able to make this jump and still continue, but as you can see he's not reacting, not following me. So I have to improvise a bit, do a checkpoint reset over here that I normally wouldn't take. As soon as Trico steps forward with his right leg, you can jump. This checkpoint is more for consistency, doesn't really save time. And the reason is that Trico will always be in the same spot when I call him. And this next bit is just the default route, there's nothing too special going on. Here you need to remove the vase so that the wooden cylinder can roll down and Trico can get a grip on it to pull himself up. You don't actually have to throw the vase away, just picking it up once and dropping it is fine. During this small cutscene, I'm jumping off from Trico's back and already running up the stairs while the camera is still on Trico. Now we're about to enter the Pendulum room. There's another eye here that we need to destroy. People always used to do a checkpoint reset upon entering the room, but I found that you can save a few seconds by not resetting. The main difference is the guard in the back of the room. If you reset, he will focus on Trico. If you do not reset, he'll drop the spear and chase you. And that makes it a bit more difficult to make it to the top platform, so you need to dodge the guard, then do a circle grab to pull up faster, and then you're just barely out of reach. It's quite precise. When you grab the chain here, you want to pull it in a straight line. If you zigzag, it loses a lot of momentum. And I'm calling Trico the entire time. And just as I push down the eye, he arrives. You can hear him as he lands on the ground. This fight can be a little bit random, but Trico did a really good job here. Now we are at Eye in the Sky. This segment, including Drawbridge skip, is one of my favorite segments in the game, because you have a lot of agency here. Before you're at the mercy of Trico, so to speak, like at the corridor fight, at command skip, the turtle god fights, and also in the Pendulum room. And now there's much less RNG involved, you just need to have the controls down and play well. Eye in the Sky used to be one of the more inconsistent skips in the game, but Aiden had an idea to do the skip a little bit differently, and I found a consistent setup for it. What you're supposed to do is to go through the hole in the glass on the right, then across the back and through the hole on the left to the front again. But instead you can move very carefully to the left here until you glitch up a little bit, and you do a small jump, and then you're high enough for the game to detect that there's a ledge above you that you can pull up on. And that's how the skip works technically. Practically, just mashing triangle and circle. Can still fall off very easily when you do the glitch, so to get Eye in the Sky first try is really good. I'm looking at Trico until he spreads his wings, and I'm counting to 4 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm doing the jump to be as efficient as possible. A directional command works best here from my experience, and usually Trico will do all the jumps on his own. Here's another mechanic I haven't mentioned yet. Whenever you fall from some height, the boy will usually take some time to recover until he starts running again. I'm not talking about breaking a leg, just the normal recovery animation. But if you immediately press X when you land, you can cancel that animation, and instead the boy will quickly crouch down and run forward. I'm using this all the time, and it's a very fundamental technique to this speedrun. safest place to grab Trico is his neck here. And ideally you can get up onto his back during this scene. Just like I'm doing here. And then you're already in a great position to make the jump across this gap. There's a small jump, so you don't have to squeeze around this narrow part of the wall. And usually there's a small cutscene here, where the boy will look back at Trico and say, "Don't worry, I'll be back soon." But you can skip that by shimmying alongside the ledge, just like this. And now we have to continue alone for a bit, because Trico can't follow us here, and all of this is leading up to Drawbridge skip, which is one of the most important skips in this run. Always be careful about this guard, it's very easy to get caught here. You also want to try to avoid touching the guards that are picking up the spears here, because if you bump into them, they'll chase you. Fortunately, I noticed way too late that one guy was following me. You can actually hear the footsteps. And then I got a bit too overconfident, tried to dodge him, and got caught. But it's just a small mistake, it happens. It would have been better to wait a bit until he starts casting his spells, and then you have a small window to get past him. Now Drawbridge skip is coming up, and this is it. Beautiful. I just recently figured out that if you press X immediately after you jump and you keep it pressed mid-air, the boy will not grab the handle even if you're close to it. You still need to get the right angle on the jump, but this new setup makes the jump much easier and much more consistent. Now we are at barrel skip number 1. I actually can't even remember how you're supposed to do this the normal way. But if you stay on the very left here, you can make a big step and carry the barrel all the way up. The narrow path alongside the wall is a bit shorter than walking across the rail tracks, but you need to be exactly parallel to the wall. And that's why I do this little spin around, so I'm lined up properly. So far the run has been going very well. I hit mirror ledge second try, I had a good fight in the first antenna room, I got the new skip after the Aroma pod section. The corridor fight and command skip definitely could have been a bit better, like 30 seconds, but still very decent. And also afterwards, Eye in the Sky first try, Drawbridge skip first try. This is extremely good pace, almost 2 minutes in front of my 301, and probably the best first hour into the run that I've ever had. Trico will push down this bridge, and as soon as he steps back with his left leg, you can do a reset. And now he's on the bridge already, and you instantly trigger the cutscene. As always, when you give Trico a jump command, face the direction you want to go. And then you can jump from his head to the rope below. This can be a little bit tricky because sometimes the boy just doesn't grab the rope. The game just doesn't register it. And I remember one time where I literally fell through it. That was in my 307. But luckily there's a checkpoint right behind you, so if you do miss it, you won't lose much time. This is the default animation when you are balancing on a rope. The boy is going very slowly and carefully. I'm just mentioning that because in a moment I'll be doing 2 skips, the rope run and Panda plummet. So time for rope run. Just before I step onto the rope, I'm pressing X, and that will initiate a running animation which overrides the default slow balancing animation that we saw before. And to keep the boy running, you need to cancel and restart the animation again and again before it ends. You also need to keep the boy perfectly lined up on the rope. If he's a little bit off, he will fall down. He'll still be able to grab the rope, but you know, it's not ideal. And this is Panda plummet. I optimize it a little bit by already giving Trico the command from the top, immediately after pushing the eye down. And as I land on him, he's already ready to jump across. It's a very beautiful skip. But you really need to be on point. You need to get the fast rope run, so you hit the right timing where Trico is jumping onto the last pillar. just as you destroy the eye. And you also only have a very small window to give him the command from the top before you need to make that big jump across to him. You can reset here as soon as the boy touches the stone. There's not too much happening in this section. You just give Trico the initial command and then he'll do the following jumps on his own. It's a good time to remove a few spears. Having spears stuck in his body doesn't affect Trico's behavior at all. He'll still listen to your commands even if he looks like a porcupine. But if you do get the chance, you want to remove them, obviously. That's also because whenever Trico jumps somewhere, you basically never want to stand on him. You always want to grab him, so you don't randomly fly off his back. And to do that, you can just press circle and the boy will pet Trico, but also hold on to him. However, if nearby there's a spear stuck in Trico, that's a button conflict. And then the boy will instead move over to remove that spear. And while he'll still cling on to Trico doing that, it can mess up how you are positioned on him, especially what direction you are facing. And that's important whenever you want to give Trico a command, so you always want to have full control over your positioning on him, and removing the spears helps with that. You can reset here as soon as Trico has jumped up, and that will allow you to get a grab on his tail a little bit earlier. And now we are at Vine Skip. I'm jumping down all the way from the ledge at the top and grabbing the ivy at the bottom. Sometimes you can randomly die during the jump, but you can avoid that by climbing a little bit higher onto Trico's body from his tail. There's a reason for that, but it's a bit complicated to explain it right now.
Atatui atike tu tuum. Irabe ujinet tu. Ataku tu katim. Awokuk.
I'm having a little bit of trouble getting barrel skip number 2, but eventually I get it. After you have thrown down the barrel, you always want to check if it landed close enough to Trico so that he can actually reach it. And it is a bit too far away here. So now I'm placing it right here in front of this big stone, because the floor is slightly sloped downwards, and by placing it here, that will prevent the barrel from rolling away again. Now we're entering another fight. In this area there are 2 guards, each holding a shield bearing that eye symbol that we've already encountered a few times. There they are. And you need to charge into them and make them drop their shields so that Trico can come over to help. And if you get it right, you can even push one of the guards off the edge like I'm doing here. And that's already 1 guy down, and it makes the whole fight much faster. Bumping into this last guy on purpose to get caught and to draw Trico's attention. And I'm doing a reset as soon as all the guards are dead. Again, a very clean fight. There's a pretty interesting general strategy that I found, and it's what I call a long-range command, which I'm going to demonstrate right now. I'm running ahead, and even though Trico is still in the other corridor, I'm already giving him a command here. And by doing that, I'm basically queuing up the command in advance as he's moving towards me. It's very efficient because Trico instantly transitions into the command, there's no delay, and also I can now already position myself on his back to give him the next command. Here's another skip. I'm gonna land on Trico and reset. And most of the time, after doing the reset, Trico will now push the pod forward. And it's really tight, but if you're fast enough, you can climb up onto Trico, jump onto the pod, and then let Trico push you forward to this arc. It's quite a difficult skip, because Trico doesn't always do the push, and you can also fall off the pod quite easily. You can move during this small cutscene, just press backwards and circle to grab the ladder, and as you can see, I'm already halfway up. Next up is the underground lake puzzle. The way I'm doing this is to just stay around this area where you start off and call Trico. And by doing that, Trico will position himself in such a way that he will break a plank on the right side, and that will create the hole in the floor where he will let down his tail and offer us a chance to escape. I'm watching the edge of the floor that Trico is stepping on very closely, and the wood dips down, up, down, up, and that's the timing where I know that the plank is gonna break. And you can see the hole and the back on the right side. Now I'm calling Trico and getting him to reposition himself again. And as soon as I can see him looking at me, I am pulling the crate to the back of the room. And this is always quite suspenseful. Is the tail gonna be there or not? Trico has to let it down as I'm swimming over. And there it is. And on to the next fight. There are 2 guards here that Trico needs to kill. And this fight always used to give me a little bit of trouble since it's very inconsistent. But I found out that you can do a checkpoint reset here as soon as Trico lands. And then Trico will spawn directly in front of the guards. And they haven't even activated yet, so it's very easy for Trico to kill them. And you always get a super clean and short fight. You can hear that the music is already dying down. And when I get the barrel, Trico will be ready to eat.
Adunete sese biu cruzi, iwete kasi, tu nek, oratu, ona katu, awezi.
As always, I'm cancelling the recovery animation here, as I land by pressing X. You don't have to remove this bar, just stand close to the door, let the guard catch you, and the cutscene will trigger. After this cutscene, Trico will try to snag you and flip you through the air onto his back. I'm dodging that so I can instead instantly give him another command. We are now approaching the Colosseum, where another fight will take place. Usually there are 4 guards in there, but there's a trick here called music glitch. And when you reset, immediately as the boy hits the ground here, the game will only load in 1 guard instead of 4. So it's a very big time save. The timing is important. You need to do the reset as soon as possible, and landing square in the middle of the road also makes it more likely to work. So now I only need to deal with this one guard. I'm charging into him and pushing him towards Trico. And the main reason for that is that I want to prevent him from throwing his spear. Because when he does that, afterwards he will run back to this little alcove again and try to pick up the shield that's laying there. And it's a very tight space and it's difficult for Trico to reach him there. Also, Trico is now already positioned in front of this lever. I'm calling him until his eyes turn normal again. And then you can give him the command to interact with the lever. You can do that by pressing R1 and circle. And although the fight is over now, the music will still keep going until the next reset. That's why it's called music glitch. Trico is not always very helpful when you try to pull the card here and get it into the right position, but luckily he stayed out of the way. Ideally, you want to turn the card by about 90 degrees and pull it a little bit into the light. And it should be in such a position that Trico is directly facing the exit of the Colosseum. Now you need to pull this lever. Run outside and call Trico. And as I said, he's already facing the exit, so usually he will emerge below very quickly. Now we can finally get the music to stop by doing a checkpoint reset. The conditions for this reset are that you need to have pulled this lever and Trico needs to have landed on the top level. I was talking about long range commands earlier, and this is the best example in the game for that technique. I'm running way ahead and telling Trico to jump up to this cliff with the waterfall, and Trico is still way behind. But this little roar confirms that he successfully received and understood the command. It's a very common conception that for Trico to listen to you, he has to be next to you or at least in line of sight. And while that does hold true for most of the run, there are in fact a few spots like this where you can use a long range command to your benefit. It saves about 5 seconds here, so it's faster, very consistent, and gives you more time to get into a better position on Trico's back. There's another long range command here. And that's the confirmation by Trico. As he's moving, I can already comfortably climb up onto his back and get ready for the next jump. I will dive down into the water and try to land as close as possible to this gate. The only exit to this room is another gate deep underwater. You can barely see it below. You need to unlock that by pulling a lever, to which I'm heading right now. You can press triangle to dive upwards. The game constantly tells you what buttons to press, but somehow they forgot about this one. Right before I'm pulling the lever, I'm calling Trico, which will make him jump down a little bit faster. And just as I'm swimming over, he's emerging to the surface, so you get a great timing, and that's the purpose of calling him before pulling the lever. There's another water puzzle over here. It's very similar to the one I just did. Again, I'm diving down to the entrance below. You do need to pay attention when you're underwater because you only have a limited time and eventually the boy will run out of breath. If that happens, he will take a moment to recover, and during that time you cannot move or call Trico, so it's definitely something that you want to avoid. There's no ladder here, so you need to wait for Trico to splash into the water and let the wave carry you up. I'm pulling the lever to unlock the gate underwater, and there's a cool trick that Sable discovered where you can dive in front of Trico, and that in turn will prompt him to dive on his own. So you don't even need to give him a command anymore. It's a bit risky. Trico won't wait for you, and if you don't catch him in time, he will leave you behind. But if you do mess it up, there's a checkpoint right here.
Atamise Tarana, Ototuri Kuno, Irakazi, Arasai, Iniazi, Awi.
Now we're a little bit more than halfway through the run. Everything is going really well. I got all the major skips after the 1 hour mark. I hit a perfect rope run and Panda plummet. I got vine skip and music glitch, and also the fights have been very good. I lost a few seconds at barrel skip number 2, but that's really about it. This is one of the more relaxing parts of the run, as you've probably noticed. The last few minutes, basically everything after music glitch have been quite easy, no major skips or anything, and that will continue for a bit more until we reach Cage Puzzle, which is one of the defining segments in the run. Here you can potentially jump a little bit more to the right, basically onto the right railing, and instead of grabbing the vines, the boy will be able to perform another jump, so you can skip a little bit of climbing, but I would definitely recommend going for the safe approach instead. Important to keep the boy running here and then try to get onto this trunk as soon as possible. I'm pressing X once and twice, letting the animation finish, and I'm right on top of the cutscene trigger. Now I have to get past the enemy Trico, and I'm trying to stay in front of this big trunk as I'm moving, so that I have some kind of safety net behind me if I do get slapped. And you will get slapped here very often, and you will die a lot. There's not much you can do about it. But I got pretty lucky here. Sometimes also the enemy Trico will just completely ignore you. That's the best case scenario. Now I'm stuck inside the cage. There's no way to really move it anywhere or get out of it. All you can do is to wait.
Artisogazi, ona kich yok, idirotti, awizi.
Finally, Trico reappears, and as soon as he has jumped down and starts moving again, you can do a reset. So now we're about to start Cage Puzzle. Maybe you still remember the corridor section and the fight about half an hour into the game. And I talked a lot about everything that can go wrong there and how reliant you are on Trico to do the right thing. And Cage Puzzle is very similar in that regard. It's basically the second big RNG hurdle in this speedrun. In the first part of Cage Puzzle, Trico needs to push you up over the edge and onto the road here. Sometimes Trico will instantly nudge you up, but it's very rare and I never found a consistent pattern to it. I do believe that running back and forth in the cage somehow makes it a bit more likely to happen, but it's just a guess. So here's the push, and this is a very unfortunate angle. It's not the worst either, but it's extremely difficult to navigate and turn the cage because the road is so narrow. And once you get stuck, it's very hard to get out of it, but I saved it pretty well. Here you can jump down to make the cage tilt and drop more quickly. And if you keep jumping as it falls, you can sometimes avoid breaking your leg, but I didn't get it this time. This is the second part of Cage Puzzle. You need to roll down the stairs, make it across the gap, and land as close as possible to the glowing circle on the right. This was a great attempt, almost flying directly into the circle. Now I'm already positioned in front of it and just need to push the cage forward. Again, this is completely random. Sometimes you will land behind the other cage on the left and you won't be able to move at all. Sometimes you won't even make it across the gap, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's pure luck. Usually it will work out. It's not as bad as the corridor fight, but oh boy, can you get unlucky here. Now I'm carrying this helmet to the level below. There's a barrel located there that we need to get to be able to progress. I'm going straight past the guard. If you want to play it a bit safer, you can wait until he starts casting his spells, but usually the chances of getting caught are very low.
Unete sese biu kuzi, iwete kasi, tu nek, odatu, ona katu, awezi.
This next part has always given me a little bit of trouble. There's a series of jumps that Trico needs to perform now, and normally you need to give him an individual command for each single jump. And sometimes he's slow or he doesn't listen to you and you have to repeat the command multiple times. It can be quite inconsistent. So my idea here was to do a checkpoint reset and to trade off the time I'm losing on the load screen initially to get a better and more consistent setup for the commands later on. All the jumps here at the beginning are fine. Also Trico will do this jump on his own, which he usually doesn't. And now I'm ignoring all the following intermediate steps and telling Trico to go straight to the end. So instead of going go to A, go to B, go to C, I'm just giving him the last command to go to C, basically chaining all the commands together. So after the initial command, Trico is supposed to do all the jumps on his own, but sadly it didn't work out in this run. I'm pretty certain my positioning was off and I wasn't directly facing the direction I wanted to go. So now I do have to resort to the individual commands after all. You can see I'm getting kinda stuck on this jump in particular. Not great, but it's just a difficult area in general. I think it's because there are so many options grouped closely together and sometimes Trico doesn't exactly know where he's supposed to go. This section is much easier. You just give Trico the initial command and then you're good to go. We'll stay on his back here and then jump onto the right of the back of his head, and that will usually prompt him to lower his head a bit. and then you can easily get this jump and continue. I'm now circling around the area to pull a lever, and that will open the gate that is blocking the way, so Trico can follow me. At around 1:55 I'm reaching the second antenna room. I'm doing a reset to respawn Trico close to me. And as Trico jumps down, the antenna will start to pulsate, destroying both cars. And you want to be positioned right here in front of the antenna. It's the same as in the first antenna room. You stand in a specific spot so that Trico can easily catch you. And again, the boy gets eaten, and then there's a cutscene. You can look at the loading icon in the bottom right that's flickering a bit. As soon as it disappears, you can skip the cutscene. Don't forget that you also need to spam away the symbols afterwards. Don't leave too early. Now there's another cutscene which will take about 4 minutes. As far as we know, there's no way to skip it, so it's a good opportunity to take a quick break. And afterwards we will be entering the final third of the game with Mine Skip and White Tower Skip coming up.
Ayurabo oti ukaya anetu tara ate de keda lozi adatu unozi awo kuku o mara genara wo so inaku bastizi awizi.
After the boy regains his consciousness, we continue, and now I will do the same checkpoint reset as before as soon as I enter the antenna room. You will see that I'm already pressing the buttons to give Trico a directional command to the right here. Whenever you're on a load screen and you know that you have to do a command afterwards, it's quite useful to kind of preload the command so that the boy will immediately execute it as soon as the load screen is over, and that way you don't have any delay whatsoever. Here you need to land directly in front of the lever. If you're too far off, the boy will break his leg. And next up is Mine Skip. I'm very proud of this one. I discovered this skip last year, only a few weeks after I had started to run the Lost Guardian. It's currently the most difficult skip in the any percent run, and one of the biggest time saves, almost a full minute if you get it first try. By stepping onto this stone you can get a boost, just enough to grab the wooden boards above and pull yourself up. It's very much inspired by the mirror latch skip at the beginning of the game, but my skip is even more difficult, and also because it feels very random whether you get the boost or not. I definitely have improved the setup a bit, and I also got mine skip second try in my 301, but still, to get it in a run like this on this pace, that's pretty crazy. And the cool thing about mine skip is that there's no opportunity cost. You can just try it, and if you get it, great. And otherwise, you just wait for Trico and you can still do it the normal way without losing any time. There's another fight against a few guards here. You don't have to run all the way to the edge to activate them. There's a small sound cue before. And that's it. And then I'm going to turn around to get Trico. This fight is really weird because for some reason Trico just doesn't fight very well here. He will knock the guards over, but very often he just doesn't kill them. So you really need to support Trico here and try to remove a few helmets to kill some of the guards on your own. That's one down. And this is what I mean, all the other guards are scattered around on the floor, and Trico hasn't killed a single one yet. That's another one. Now finally Trico steps up. And he also gets the last guy. And all in all, it was a decent fight. 2 kills for me and 2 kills for Trico. Now I'm positioning myself on Trico's left side, just behind his wing, and getting ready for the run up to the White Tower. I'm trying to stay on his side, but far enough away from his legs so Trico doesn't brush me off as he is running over the crumbling bridge. Positioning myself like that, I can see exactly where I am right now, easily drop down and move on. I know that Aiden jumps off Trico's head here. That's probably the fastest way to do it, because you won't get caught up in his legs trying to run past him. So that is something that could be improved if you are brave enough to take the risk. And now we're at White Tower skip, probably the most iconic skip in the game. Most people will stay on the left side here and do a little flick around the beam. What I'm doing is pressing X, running under the beam, and that will push the boy out. He's basically standing in the air, and that's just enough to make it across the gap. That's the most difficult part about the skip. Afterwards I'm just playing it safe and going up very carefully so I don't fall down. And that's White Tower skip, first try. I'm pretty consistent at the skip and wasn't too nervous, but you have a lot of time to think about it as you run up. And if you're on PB pace, the mental pressure is definitely there. Here you can reset as soon as Trico's eyes are being covered. It kind of looks like his face is being censored on the pause screen. And now you respawn on the right. Getting a little bit stuck in an animation cycle here. After pulling the lever, there's a jump here which is quite tricky, and I'm approaching this very cautiously and really making sure that I have the right setup and position. Ideally, you want to land directly on Trico's head. And then you do a tiny jump. I'm only pressing forward here when I'm already in the air. It's a very delicate movement, so I don't overjump it or bounce off the wall in a bad angle.
Atisakiak yetu ninaf aturikono agiane heteroi yo agatu ian ihetu nezuna ara kulo kutio otiana risoma kyura letu arake.
When the camera starts panning back, you can do a reset and Trico will already be turned in the right direction. There's another jump here, which usually isn't too difficult. Just make sure that you run up all the way to the edge before you jump. A long range command. Earlier, after the cage puzzle, I was talking about how you can chain commands together in certain situations, and this is where I originally got the idea from. So I'm running around the corner, past the first pillar, and I'm telling Trico to jump to the end. By doing that, I'm skipping one command, and it's basically a combination of a long range command and a chaining command at once. Here you do not need to wait for Trico, you can go down on your own, but it's important as an intermediate step that you land on this tiny platform, otherwise you fall from too high up and the boy will break his leg. Then you can just ignore the guards and run past them. Push the eye a bit forward to position it on the other side of the bridge, and finally pull the lever on the left side. When the glass breaks, I'm doing another reset. And afterwards the bridge will already be up again, which is another small time save. This section is called Condor Clash. You need to pull the lever again, and afterwards, while the camera is locked on to the Tricos fighting, I'm jumping over the railing to the right. That will give me a slightly better position to make the jump down onto the enemy's back. And you absolutely do not want to miss this jump, because if you die here, there's a super long loading screen and you lose like 1.5 minutes. Then you need to pull the tail under the gate. I'm having a little bit of a problem getting my circle button to register, but there we go. And with good movement you can zigzag through the legs and hang down from the ledge here. If you drop down during this cutscene already, the game will bug out and you won't be able to push the cart, so you need to wait until it's over. Now it's safe to go. And this is also quite a difficult skip, because the boy is not able to grab Trico here when you jump down. That's why you want to land on his upper back, which is the most level and stable place to be. If you land on Trico's legs or the lower part of his body, it's very likely that the boy will just slip off and die. And now, 2 hours after the first antenna room, we are finally getting the marrow back. If you pet Trico, he will cough it up. I'm doing a really terrible job trying to pick it up, but whatever. And I've talked about this earlier, but this is actually the only segment in the game where it does matter whether Trico is spear stuck in his body, because you need to remove all of them to be able to progress. And that's why I'm already trying to get a quick look at his body here. And after the flashback, I'm standing on top of this broken Trico statue. And now there are 4 targets that I need to hit with the lightning. The wall of rubble to the right, the 2 balconies with guards that I will kill right now so I don't have to deal with them later, and finally the minecart. And from this position I'm able to hit all these 4 targets. Since Trico is very weak right now, to get him up and running again, we need to feed him all the 4 barrels on this area. 2 of them are located near the minecart, and the other 2 are located at the top platform, and I'm getting those first. From the middle of this platform you can jump down onto Trico's head. And Trico is very slow to eat these barrels. He will eat one and then there's quite a bit of delay before you can feed him the next one. For that reason I'm getting the barrel that's closest nearby, just to get that process started as soon as possible. This is the last barrel. If Trico still had spears stuck in his body, now, after feeding him the last one, would be the time to remove them. But usually that would also be indicated by a dialogue line where the boy says, "Hold on, I'll pull them out." And this dialogue didn't appear. And also there are no spears visible. And indeed, the camera pans to this guy, and that means that I have successfully passed the spear check and also the barrel check.
Atamisetunim ite harakastu awizi. Here I'm just clinging onto Trico's back. All the guards on the balconies have already been killed earlier, so we can progress to the top without any interruption. As Trico is jumping over to the other side of the broken bridge, I'm doing a checkpoint reset. This is to avoid a soft lock that I have encountered many times, where Trico would just refuse to turn around and shoot the wood that is covering the entrance here. But if you do the reset, you don't have that problem. When Trico has jumped across the gap and the boy has entered the corridor, you can do another reset, which will teleport you into the third and last antenna room.
first time Trico is able to withstand the power of the signals. We're now at 2:26. I do not have any splits for the game, by the way. I'm just looking at a stopwatch from time to time to see where I'm at, and the antenna rooms are always a pretty good benchmark. In this area there are 5 eye symbols that we need to destroy. So very similar to the balconies with the guards that we just encountered. You just shatter the symbols right here and you won't have to worry about them later on. This is a spot that can be a bit finicky. What you want Trico to do is to fly up to that area with the trees above. But sometimes what Trico will do instead is to just stand up on his hind legs without actually jumping up. Or, even worse, he will go back into the antenna room. Usually my setup is fairly consistent here. I will destroy the 5 symbols, then give Trico a directional command from the ground. That's just supposed to keep him in place. And then I will climb up onto Trico and give him the same directional command again. So I did lose a bit of time here. But in an area like this, where there are multiple options for action grouped very closely together, it's just difficult to get Trico to follow the exact command that you have in mind. There are 2 more balconies here that I will destroy now. I'm aiming a little bit to the edges, because if you hit them dead center, for some reason the balconies sometimes won't break. I assume that's a bug, it's pretty weird. You can also see that whenever I'm not using the mirror, I will put it away, just to make absolutely sure that the boy will be able to grab Trico if the situation should require it. Very fundamental, especially in this section. Never stand on Trico and never be on his legs when he's running and jumping around. And there's a lot of that here, actually to the point where it's a bit repetitive. But it is what it is, at least it's not very difficult. Above me is one more balcony. The space on this platform is very narrow, but if you position yourself just right, you can shoot it from down below. I got quite unlucky here. Trico gives me a little nudge, which causes me to drop the mirror, and that messes up the setup. I'm trying it for a bit more, but ultimately I decide to just go for the normal way. Also, you do not want to be on Trico's right side here when he jumps up. That's a big mistake. You can see that I almost got thrown off his back, and I've died like this before, so I should have known better. I guess I was still stressed about missing the balcony skip. There's so little room for error if you want to get a sub 3, like even if you die just once, or Trico soft blocks, or you get bad RNG and cage puzzle. One single mistake like that and the run is basically dead. And this attempt has been going extremely well so far, but had I just missed mind skip, for example, this wouldn't be a sub 3. So it really becomes a grind at the end, where you're playing the game over and over again and just hope for it all to come together. But when I'm playing, I'm always on the lookout for new strategies and new skips, and that has definitely helped to keep the game interesting for me. During this cutscene you can press backwards and you will already be out of the room and on the stairs. Slightly missed the exit here. I'm giving Trico the next command while I'm still on the stairs, so that he will go straight into action when I land on him. Now I'm positioning myself on his neck so that I can easily drop down. As always, pressing X on the landing for the fast recovery. And here you can run around the big stone, step onto this one and climb the whole thing with just one grab. There's also a cool skip here. Normally you would just climb up on the right, but I'm running into the wall on purpose, and that will trigger an animation with a lot of forward momentum, which will carry the boy all the way up and you can skip the climbing. I also found a new strategy for this. I'm not dropping down yet, because if Trico is turning around, which is exactly what he's doing right now, there's a very short window where there's nothing for the boy to land on, and he will just hit the bridge and die on impact.
will also notice that Trico is facing the wrong direction. We need him to go the other way. So as soon as the cutscene is over, I'm doing a checkpoint reset. Immediately after, I can give Trico the command to make the flight to the White Tower. I don't have to drop down blind, and Trico is already moving down the bridge. So this strat is not only much easier and safer, it's also a nice time save. White Tower is coming up and we are getting closer and closer to the end. This is one of my favorite segments in the whole game. I just love the fights, and I'd say this is 90% skill based, so if you know what you're doing, you can get very clean and consistent fights. First of all, I will position myself on the top platform to the right. It's a very safe spot, you have great vision on everything, and it's close to the door below, so that when the second phase of the fight starts, I can very quickly get down there. Trico is already attacking the guards in front of me, so I can target the ones on the lower platform. You always want to prioritize the guards that are the furthest away from Trico, and on which you have free line of sight. Got a nice double kill here. And the way the lightning works is that it will pierce everything that it passes through. That's how you get double kills, triple kills, and so on. You can also see that even when targeting a single guard, I'm always trying to aim a little bit behind him to get the lightning to pierce instead of shooting him directly, just to make sure that it will kill him. This is the second phase of the fight. There will always be a shield bearer emerging from this door, and you need to take care of the shields right away because they have a weakening effect on Trico's fighting spirits. Occasionally there will also be a second shield bearer on the top left. That's what I'm checking on right now, but luckily I didn't get one. Again, aiming behind the guard, getting to the last balcony. Here I'm running past the helmet to make sure that I don't accidentally grab it when pressing circle. It's always good to pay attention to what's on the floor around you. And since Trico got the guy back there, I'm readjusting the light. It's pretty obvious, but you never want to attack the same target as Trico, because that will literally make your fights only half as efficient as they could be. I'm losing a few seconds here on the last guard, but it was a very clean fight overall. Can also potentially leave Trico behind when there's only one or two guards left and hope that he will take care of them. But with a pace like this, that's not a risk that I'm going to take. I'm doing a small skip here, so I don't have to wait for Trico. And this is the second White Tower fight, and I discovered another huge skip here, which I will call Mirror Lights, and just take a look.
So to progress to the upper levels of the White Tower, you need to unlock the elevator by lighting up all the sockets in this area. And to do that, you would usually lure the guards into the middle, have Trico shoot them, and when they're all dead you can light up the things. However, I found that if you go around and activate the guards in a specific order, you can just barely light up all the sockets in between and skip the entire fight, which is a massive time save. Coming up now is the third and last fight in White Tower. This one is the longest and probably the most difficult one because there's so much going on. In total there will be 3 waves of guards emerging from the lower level, and there are 2 additional guards on the top level. One guard on the top level will always be positioned in front of you in the beginning, so this is a good opportunity to already take one of them out. It can be very annoying later on. I'm moving around a bit to dodge the first wave of guards. Got another nice double kill here. And you just need to find a good balance between moving around and being safe and still using the mirror and supporting Trico. Now I'm running back to the starting position and I'm standing pretty much exactly behind the socket. That gives me line of sight on the guard lying on the ground, but it's also in anticipation of the second wave of guards coming up. And as you can see, I'm now perfectly positioned in front of this door, where there will always be a shield bearer exiting from in the second wave. Important to memorize that one. Now I see that Trico is already taking care of the guy in front of me, so I can readjust to the guard on the right, aiming behind him. And Trico also got this guy and I can move on. Again, I'm positioning myself in front of the same door as before. There will be another shield bearer here in the third wave. And there he is. And as I said, you immediately want to take care of the shields before they can have a negative impact on Trico. Sometimes there will also be a second shield bearer on the upper side of the room in the third wave. Flashing the mirror in front of him will make him drop his shield and kind of stomp together. Whenever you're focusing a guard close to you with the mirror like that, Trico will target him as well. So a common strategy that I'm doing is to focus one guard shortly until Trico returns his attention to him, and then refocus the light onto another guy and shoot him instead for maximum efficiency. Was it. Another very clean fight, not getting caught, almost hitting every shot. Unfortunately, Trico's blocking the elevator a bit, and I have to run around, dodge the helmets on the ground, and dodge Trico and activate it once more. But all the difficult parts of the run are done now, and the last 10 minutes are pretty much smooth sailing. This is basically the last command that you need to give Trico. I remember that in my 301 I somehow messed it up. My Trico completely soft-locked and I lost over a minute. But in this run I had pretty good Trico RNG, good fights, good cage puzzle, he's listening to the commands. Everything went pretty well. There's another reset here as soon as Trico has landed, and then I just need to press forward and jump up. When you remove the mirror, the sphere of the master will expand again, so you want to minimize it just enough so that you can climb the cage without it being able to reach you. This is another great spot to utilize the circle grab. You just hold down circle and the boy will pull up on his own once and twice, and for the last part you need to do a normal jump again. I try to land as close to the socket as possible. Inserting the mirror will stop the fence from spinning and allow Trico to jump up. And as soon as you get a grab on this railing, you can do another reset. You can give Trico any command here to trigger the next cutscene. And as far as we know, there's no way to skip all these cutscenes. All you can do is to wait. And this is at the very end of the run. I'm getting an instant tail pull, which is great. And the timing ends as soon as the lightning hits the master. And that's it, first try. That's time. 2:59.12 is the new TLG any percent world record. The first sub 3 ever, an improvement of more than 2.5 minutes over my previous PB and almost 14 minutes ahead of the second place on the speedrun.com leaderboard. I hope you enjoyed the run. Thank you very much for watching and feel free to join us on the Team Eco Speedrun Discord. Link is in the description.
soy dizzy. Akena takizi. Awizi. Otsa mizi. Agishiwo nizi. Yetara sastazi. Atiketan inoi arone tu. Agutui kubo. Eu eduque a maçona. O Yashinze. Agoji. Ajukui. Atis nekya tagi.
Why did it custom ugly? Oh, why are met?